All right, so now we are going to be sewing on our button. So that's why we call it a button pouch. So we're going to be sewing onto the button on part of our fabric. So you guys need a brand new thread. And so we have our hand needle where there's nothing on it anymore. So what we're going to do is take our thread of choice, of color whatever you want, and you guys are going to make it as long as your wingspan. So that means that you guys are taking both arms outstretched, so our wingspan. So it's gonna be pretty long. And you're gonna cut it, and now we're gonna put it onto our needle. So once again, put your needle at the top of your pincushion. You're going to thread it one end through the eye of the needle, just like you guys did for the hem stitch on day one. And then what you guys are gonna do now differently is you're actually gonna take these two ends and you're going to match them up. So you are going to pretty much split the thread in half, and now I have my two threads together matching up, and now I'm gonna pretend that they're one thread. And so, with these two threads put together, I'm gonna make a lasso knot on this end. So once again, wrapping around our index finger on that first joint, rolling back and forth a couple times, and then eventually just keep rolling it down your index finger, and you're gonna have that lasso hanging down. And then on top of the lasso knot, you're gonna pinch it and pull down onto it, making that lasso knot, feeling that thread bunch into your fingertips. Once you have a messy knot at that end, you have completed this task. All right, so now we're gonna talk about the buttons. So when looking at your fabric this way with the hem stitch on this is the back side of your fabric. When you flip it over, this is the front side of the fabric. And this is where you guys are going to put your button on the opposite side of the hem stitch. So this is where we did the hem stitch, and this is where we're going to place our button. I have chosen a 4-button hole. You guys can either do a 4-button hole or a 2-button hole, it doesn't really matter. However, a 4-button hole does have a couple more steps, so if you guys would like to replace your button to a 2-button hole, that's totally fine. So where I'm gonna place my button is going to be about 1 inch to a 1/2 inch down from the fabric. I'm going to grab my thread with my needle, with my lasso knot on the end, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the button and the fabric and pinch it with my non-dominant hand. On the back side of the fabric, what I'm going to do is I'm going to poke my needle into the fabric, coming out one of the buttonholes. And I'm just gonna pull it all the way through till the knot catches. Then once you are done pulling it through, I need to go onto the back side of the fabric. So I'm gonna go down the opposite side of the button. And I'm just gonna pull this through till it gets nice and tight. And so that is the first step. I want you guys to repeat this step 3 to 4 more times. So I'm just gonna do it quickly. Going up and then down, up, doing that same process, going up through the same hole, down through the same hole. I'm gonna do that one more time. And then since I have a 4-button hole, I still have 2 more holes that I need to complete. So what I'm going to do is I'm gonna come up through this hole and then come down through the opposite hole. And I'm gonna do that 3 more times. Just make sure that you guys are taking your time and understanding which way your needle needs to be going and how many times you've done that step. All right, so now that I have 4 layers this way and 4 layers that way, I'm gonna do the next step of the button, which is called a thread shank. And so the purpose of a thread shank, which is actually your module activity sheet question, so remember this, the purpose of a thread shank is it's going to raise the button off the fabric so that fabric can fit underneath it. Because right now it's just kind of flush up against the fabric. we are going to make a thing called a thread shank so that it lifts it up off the fabric so we can fit fabric underneath. So on the back side, it's okay if it looks messy. Mine looks messy. This is actually going to be on the inside of our button pouch. What you guys are going to do is you're going to poke your needle in that same area that you guys have been working. You're actually going to come to the front side of the fabric, but not through a buttonhole. So you guys see how I'm like kind of like angling it? And I'm going to push it through and come out till I feel it get tight. And then this is the part where we actually make the thread shank. So what I would do is grab your thread a little bit closer towards the button, and you guys are going to wrap your thread around your button. I would say at least 6 times. So if you do it like 6 to 8 times, that will be perfect. So I got 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So now you guys can see that our button has raised off the fabric a little bit, creating that thread shank. So, and then we have a couple more steps left till we are done with the button. So we're going to take our needle, poke it near that thread shank, and then come out the back side of the fabric and pull it through till it gets tight. And then we're going to do our end knot, or that end stitch that we did with our hem stitch. So what you guys are going to do in that same kind of area, I know it's kind of messy, which is totally okay. You guys are going to grab some fabric, not pull our thread all the way through, because what we're going to do is put our needle through that loop and pull up again. And I'm going to do that one more time, so at least twice, making it nice and snug so that our button doesn't fall off. So putting your needle through that loop and pulling up. Once you've done that end knot or that end stitch twice, what you guys can do is just cut off your thread near that end, and then you guys have completed your button.